Now that we've taken care of some definitions, we'll start with section 1.1. So that was like the introduction to chapter one. And we start with more definitions. But first, you can see, what it is that we're going to learn. We're going to learn how to display categorical data. A lot of you have already practiced this on some level, probably back in middle school though. So it's been a while. Identify what makes some graphs categorical data deceptive, and I'll let you read the rest of what we'll be able to do. So some definitions, the first being a frequency table. Frequency table displays the counts or frequencies of categorical data. Then we have a relative frequency. Relative frequency table shows the percents or relative frequency. So anytime you see the word percents, when we're talking about frequency, it's to say these two things mean the same thing. Percents are relative frequencies. And then back with frequencies, another vocabulary word they might use in place of it is counts, counts and frequencies, and then percents and relative frequencies. So in this example, we're going to look at the distribution of categorical data. So we have radio audience rating service. The radio audience rating service Abitron places U.S. radio stations into categories that describes the kinds of programs they broadcast. Here are two different tables showing the distribution of station formats in a recent year. So these are all of our radio stations. I'm assuming all of the radio stations because it's a lot. And then we have, so this is what the classification of the different classifications of radio stations, and then the frequency in which they occur. So there's 13,838 total radio stations in this for this particular year. And adult contemporary makes up 1,556 of them, and you can kind of see the breakdown of the rest of them. Then we have the relative frequency. So this is the percentage of each of these, the frequency in which each of these radio stations occur, the categories. So you can imagine that to find this percent, we just take the number of, if we're looking at adult contemporary, we take this number over this number, the total, and that's how we get 11.2%. And then we repeat that process for all the rest of them. You can use a pie chart. I'm going to zoom in because this is small. You can use a pie chart to display this data because it's all part of the whole. So all of these are going to add up to about 100% of the all the different types of radio stations that we have. We also can use a bar graph to represent this data. So either way, however you want to display the data, that's fine. Notice that this doesn't round exactly to 100. Well, it doesn't add exactly to 100 or 100%. So it's just called a round off error. And it's just because we rounded the other values. So as long as that's close to 100%, we can be sure that we've accounted for everything. But if you know that you're taking data of, all the data that you have, and it should add up to about 100. So next example, who owns an MP3 player? This is an older textbook. I don't even know if you guys remember what an MP3 player, we used to have little, maybe you do. But I don't know I forget what I didn't have an iPod at first. I had something that was smaller and not as cool. But the thing when I was in high school was to have an iPod. And because our phones did not stream music back then. So we want to choose a graph to display the data. And I'll let you read through that. And here is the table that they came up with. So we have the age group and then the percent owning the MP3 player. So we're going to make a well-labeled bar graph to display the data. So the percent is going to go on the y-axis, percent who owns MP3. And then the X is going to be the age groups. Okay, so the different age groups we have are 12 to 17, 18 to 24, 25 through 34, and 35 to 54, and 55 and older. Okay, this is very messy. This normally wouldn't be this messy. So let's just, we can count by, I would say, tens. I'll do one more up, all the way up here. Just kind of taking into account the values that I have. So 12 to 17 is 54%. So that would be my bar graph. Hopefully yours looks a little nicer. 30 for 18 to 24. 30 for 25 through 34. That should be equal, just so you know, those should both be 30. And 35 through 54, about 13%, or not about 13%, and 55 and older is 5%. Okay. So super simple. Here's your bar graph.